Hey, what's up guys? Here is 12 minutes of useless League of Legends info, episode 37. If you enjoyed, please consider subbing and helping me hit the 200k mark, and let's jump into things. Did you know that in 2014, there was a time when Kassadin had almost an 100% ban rate? At one point, he had more than a 99% ban rate for some regions, and this was all because of how absurdly broken he was. His Q had a 2-second silence on it, his W did more damage, his E had a higher base damage and longer slow, and his R had a 700 range on it with decent AP ratio that stacked up to 10 times. For reference, you can only stack up to 4 times on Kassadin today. That's essentially like having 10 flashes that does damage. Pretty insane. Hey, really quick, have you ever wondered which friend you have the highest win rate with? Well, the app Mobalytics, and sponsor of today's video, allows you to see just that. Not only that, but it also allows you to see win streaks depending on what day you've played. It provides an entire chart showing your LP gain and loss journey, and it gives you an entire list of data specific to your account. Additionally, it even has stats on your champion pool and matchups, and it of course also shows all of the champions that are meta right now too, including Arena. And once you're in the game too, it has tools like CS trackers, summoner spell timers, a HUD to show you how much gold you need until an item, and you can even set it up to notify you when other people buy items too, which is crazy underrated. You can also see details of the other players too once you're in the game. It seriously is a great all-in-one League of Legends app, so make sure to download Mobalytics for free using my link in the description. It'll help support the channel too, and thank you Mobalytics for sponsoring today's video. Did you know that if you hit Control 5 when playing Pyke, you can make his dagger glow? Additionally, whenever you toggle it on, the first auto attack he hits with will always do the crit animation. In other words, if you like his crit animation, you can essentially just keep spamming it by using Control 5. You just gotta add that to the buttons you press when doing Pyke's combos. Similarly, there are a bunch of other toggles out there that you can do with Control 5, like changing position of your meeps on Bard, changing your walk on Zoe, changing your walk on Heimerdinger to his derpy walk, changing your helmet on Kai'Sa, switching stances on Aatrox, and there's even some skin-specific ones too, like being able to swap your blades using the Battle Queen Katarina skin. I've mentioned some of these before, but what is new is the $500 Faker skin, because that skin also has a toggle, which is Faker doing the silence emote. But what's funny about this is because it's considered a toggle, it can actually still be seen by people who even mute emotes. So if you do end up spending money on the skin for some godforsaken reason, at least you have the power to BM people through mutes. That said, I believe Riot is looking into changing it. Speaking of Ahri though, because everyone hated on how expensive the skin is, everyone decided to start banning her in a bunch of games, causing her ban rate to skyrocket to 30% in some regions. It's kind of impressive by the community, to be honest. You know what's bad too? When even the Ahri mains are okay with it. Did you know that back in season 2, you could actually ignite minions in jungle camps? You can even see this being done in Cass's champion spotlight on the blue buff. Because of this, it also wasn't uncommon to accidentally ignite a camp or monster instead of smiting it, which happened probably more than it should have. Similarly, it also was sometimes really hard to ignite an enemy, especially in big team fights around objectives, because it'd also be really easy to misclick onto the dragon or baron, igniting it instead of a champion. Also, a small side note, if you did use ignite on the first monster when jungling, you'd actually gain a bonus 5 AD too. Did you know that before the Howling Abyss existed, ARAMs were fought on a map called Proving Grounds, which was essentially just Summoner's Rift, but in the mid lane. This is also the map that you started during the tutorial back then, which is really weird to look at these days. Something kind of interesting about this clip though is the second summoner spell that you were given then was actually a discontinued one called Revive. It allowed you to literally revive yourself to your fountain while also granting you 125% movement speed for 12 seconds. A lot of people also ended up pairing this with teleport in champions like Karthus or Kog'Maw since they had their on death effect.
You think you're safe from me, balls? You think you're safe from me, mother?
So this is kind of interesting. This is a graph of players' rankings or ratings back in 2010. I say ratings because back then the ranked system was on a rating system for ranked as well, kind of like chess. Anyways, they still had a rank after passing a certain rating, but what's really crazy to think about is how different players were spread out 14 years ago. Gold players were essentially the same as diamond players today, and plat players were essentially the same as masters players today. Pretty wild. So do you know the game GeoGuessr? You know the game where you're shown some part of the world and you have to guess where you are? Well, this person made a GeoGuessr for League of Legends. It works pretty much the same way as GeoGuessr, but instead it shows you a zoomed in image of Summoner's Rift and you have to find out where that part is on the map. In other words, it's the ultimate nerd test because when I get some of these right, I don't know if I should be proud or disappointed in myself. Probably the second one. Anyways, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to try it out yourself. According to the lore, Aurelion Sol is around 26.4 million kilometers long, meaning if he was placed in our solar system, his body would stretch roughly halfway to Mercury from the sun. It also just makes it that much more hilarious when you realize Fizz is only 3 feet tall and is one of Aurelion Sol's best counter picks. Talk about an upset. Did you know that the old League of Legends client actually had a stats page for you where you could see things like max kills, minions killed, damage dealt, gold earned, and a lot more? It would even show you your averages per game like a lot of third-party things do today, but straight in the client. You could even filter these stats to specific champions. It's honestly kind of dumb that Riot got rid of this. Did you know that according to Riot, the correct pronunciation of this item is Mercurial Scimitar, not Mercurial? Not that long ago, someone did a poll on which type of champions people played based on their gender, and these were the results. Guys tend to play tanks and fighters, while most girls mostly play mages and supports, which honestly checks out from my experience as well. Okay, so this is kind of weird. In 2013, the UK implemented an ORN filter in an attempt to help protect the youth. However, this ORN filter had a lot of flaws upon its release, banning pretty much everything that had selected keywords in it, even if it wasn't actually related to any of that. One of those keywords was the word sex, which unintentionally also led to banning sex education websites, which isn't ideal in itself, but more importantly, this also led to the banning of the League of Legends patcher for UK players. This was because one of the patching logs was called Varus Expiration Timer in Xerath Mage Chains Extended, which obviously seems innocent enough until you realize that the word sex was hidden in there all along. The S in Varus in the EX in Expiration Timer and the S in Chains in the EX in Extended created the word sex. Riot was out here trying to scar the UK youth with that phrase, but luckily the filter came in clutch. It was a close call though. A few months ago, there was a 60-year-old player who got so fed up with all these smurfs in the game that he decided to give them a taste of their own medicine. He ended up buying a bunch of high elo accounts, played ranked on them, and inevitably unintentionally fed in all his games. Basically just reverse smurfing. Ironically, he probably actually got better from playing in high elo games too. Pretty creative though. Did you know that when League of Legends first started, Riot would actually send small gifts to random community members who caught Riot's attention? Whether it be a popular Reddit post or for just being an active member in the League of Legends community, they would send to them a message like this, get their address, and while it depended on the person, they'd sometimes send over things like champion statues or even a signed poster from some of the Rioters. It's kind of cool to think about how much more Riot was able to interact with the community when its player base was so much smaller. Did you know that Forecast Jana has a voice line where she says,
"Expect a spawn of dragons every 6 minutes today"?
Because when this skin was made over a decade ago, that information was actually accurate. However, Riot still hasn't updated it and probably never will because it's just a small detail that would have to be adjusted every time they messed with the dragon spawn timer. Probably for the better though, because Winter Forecast's actually right. This person figured out that you can play the Through the Fire and Flames intro and He's a Pirate from Pirates of the Caribbean on Ornn's instrument when it was going on. Honestly, pretty impressive. If you're enjoying, please consider poking that sub button, and here's a puppy. Thanks, guys. Did you know that Nico was partially inspired by Stitch from Lilo and Stitch? Her ultimate also originally belonged to Silas during development, and lastly, one of her favorite foods is cheese bread. Did you know that Boots of Swiftness doesn't just make you faster in general, but it will also make you faster through self-slowing effects as well, like Blitzcrank's W for instance, or Vi's Q, or even Varus when he's charging up his arrow, which is actually pretty useful. Okay, so everyone knows that Shaco does more damage when he's behind you and backstabs you, but did you know that his E also does more damage if you have your back facing it? In other words, next time he's throwing one out, it might be worth turning around and facing it before it hits to reduce the damage the E will do. Did you know that when watching League of Legends replays, you can pretty much zoom out forever by hitting Control-Shift-V? After hitting it, all you have to do is just keep scrolling out for however long you want. I don't know if there's actually a limit to this, but it doesn't look like it. Kind of cool though. A few months ago, this person released a graph showing the average amount of days between each champion and when they got a new skin. And even with his rework, Skarner is still sitting at the top. Did you know that the world record for the fastest time in getting 100 CS is 4 minutes and 41 seconds? This person used fiddlesticks to do it and basically just sat in the base and sucked all the minions he could. Still, under 5 minutes is kind of ridiculous. Did you know that Azir actually has quite the history when it comes to his development? You see, before League was actually League, there was a champion named the Hydra Sol that was being worked on during League of Legends beta, whose abilities was to summon rainstorms, vortexes, and other watery things. However, because his design would have just needed so many particle effects and because the technology just wasn't quite there back then, they eventually decided to cancel the champion because it would have been extremely difficult to keep up with all the VFX effects. However, a few years later, the Hydra Sol inspired a new champion named Seth the Sand Mage. It was basically the Hydra Sol, but he uses sand instead of water. Seth even had a sand friend or sandworm that would sporadically attack people as well. However, once again, the champion design was just too visually demanding because of all the particles. In fact, it was so bad that it was single-handedly causing lower-end computers to slow down. However, as we all know, Seth eventually turned into Azir, which he himself even took some time to develop, going through multiple different ability concepts like the Windmill of Death. There was also this sand clapping ability he was going to have too. 14 years ago, this person made a reverse Soraka skin idea. Yeah, This is peak content right here. In 2014, someone posted a huge chart showing champions with the most average amount of deaths per game, with Karthus being at the very top at 8.777, which I suppose isn't too shocking considering his passive. Out of all champions, Twisted Fate was in second though, which is kind of weird. And Zac was at the bottom of the list with the least amount of average deaths at only 4.8 deaths per game. Similarly, they also made a graph showing the average total damage dealt to champions, and once again Karthus was at the very top with an average of 33,284 damage per game. Teemo was in second place and Ziggs was right behind it in third. Karthus and Teemo didn't surprise me at all, but I definitely didn't expect Ziggs to be there, especially over someone like Brand or Zyra. Also, the champion who did the least amount of damage was Taric at 8,951. Did you know that during Lulu's champion spotlight all the way back in 2012, Freak actually played Lulu as a jungler instead of a support?
Though Lulu is a support, I play her as a jungler.
He's probably one of the few champions I would never picture ever jungling, but the game was definitely a lot different back then compared to today. Still, I can't imagine the clears were that good. In 2012, there was a glitch that allowed sad robot Amumu's laugh to be heard globally, meaning you could spam his laugh and everyone on the map could hear it at all times. I'm sure it was quite a shock to a lot of people, but everyone should just be happy that it wasn't Lux's laugh instead. Did you know that Faker has played almost 1,200 pro games of League of Legends throughout his career, and out of those, he's only used a skin 9 times. And out of those 9 times, he's only intentionally used a skin 6 of those times. 2 of the times there was a bug that selected a Cass skin and Lucian skin for him, and another time one of the refs was using Battle Bunny Riven in practice tool earlier, so the skin was pre-selected beforehand. Have you ever wondered who the worst League of Legends pro was? That title is obviously slightly subjective, but was thought to belong to a player named Locust from Dig back in the OG days of League. Apparently, and I can't 100% confirm this, but according to I'm a Cutie Pie and Skara, who were on his team back then, this guy went to Korea, played ranked, and couldn't get out of silver. Slightly unfortunate. This is probably one of the more random pentakills that I've seen. Just watch. Okay, so basically what happened was Sivir died but hit everyone on the team beforehand. Then Vlad decided to Q a minion, giving vision into the bush for the turret. The turret killed Pyke, which triggered Sivir's static shiv, and then the static shiv had the chain reaction, which ultimately killed everyone. Basically, all this happened because Vlad wanted to Q a minion. Nice. If you think you're having a bad day in League, here's a video of a guy dying to a brand who wasn't even trying to kill him. I mean, sure, he had Elder too, but damn, that is a slightly unfortunate. This is probably what lore accurate Heimerdinger looks like if he ever played League of Legends. I mean, as much as I hate playing Heimerdinger, I do have to commend the creativity to launch the turret over for the kill. That's pretty good. And lastly, do you know what champion York looks up to the most? Well, it's pretty obvious he digs Graves. Get it? Because Graves is a champ and is also... Alright, never mind. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to sub if you enjoy, and I will see you next time. Yo, a huge shout out to my amazing patrons and supporters who have stuck with me this entire time. We had Gooseman and Hagel, and a huge shout out to Wolf for being a freaking tier 3 patron. Seriously, thank you all so much. You have really helped me make it this far. Alright, see you next time. Bye.